Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mack Flash 5.
Can never get
One
him to
of us
behave.
may not make
I
it out
know.
alive. This is the show where we like to list our top 5 favorite movies fitting a certain genre or topic. My name is Matt. I am here again with AB, again with Scott, and again with Kim.
Special October guest.
Yes.
Kim.
Because today we are going to continue the October Spooktacular, and today's topic is going to be creature features. Now, people at home might have a different definition of creature feature than us, but that's for you to decide and tell us in the comments below. How are you guys doing?
Solid.
Good.
Yeah, good pal. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody able to sleep fine after watching these movies?
I'll tell you what, like legitimately my number one is one of my most scary movies, and we'll get to it into it, but like legitimately it scares the hell out of me.
Ooh, I'm excited to find out. I know nothing about his list, so I'm very
I know nothing
excited.
about hers. I mean,
Yeah,
there is one that you guys all know of that's going to be on there.
Sure.
I mean, what? Whoa.
All clues aside, I guess.
Yeah.
For this one, we're going to kick things off with my number 3. But before we do that, I'll just remind everybody how the show works. After we decide on topic, we all go our separate ways and list our top 5 movies. In this case, creature features. We come back and we are going to list those off individually, round the horn. We're going to give you our 3, 2, and 1. We're going to talk about them in depth and have 2 honorable mentions totaling our top 5. Okay, so AB mentioned that his number 1. Did you say it's a scary movie, but is it a movie that scared you?
That's what I mean. It scares. It's legit scares me.
Now,
even after seeing it like a million times, it shakes me. It riles me. So
my number 3 is that from my list.
Ooh.
This is a movie that I didn't see in theaters because it looked horrifying, and I was probably too young to see it in the first place. And for my entire life, had put off from watching till this moment. Essentially,
Wow.
Cool.
I was at the used video store. I found the DVD. And I was like, you know what? I'm 36. It's time to put this on.
Put it on your big boy pants.
Yes, and watch it. It stayed on my shelf for a few months, and then this topic came up, creature features. I was like, okay, this is perfect. The premiere viewing is going to be for this list. Now, while I was watching it, I was like, this may not qualify, but I'm going to put it on anyways because it made the list.
I love our debate of creature features that we're all going to get into.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So it made the list before I've even seen the movie. My number 3 is Fire in the Sky.
Oh, interesting.
I think we talked when we talked about it. We kind of agreed that aliens were creatures.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you only see the aliens for about 5 minutes in this movie.
Fair. That's fair.
Okay.
And that's where I was just like,
Yeah.
this is not going to count. But they are some scary looking aliens.
It is. It's true.
Never even heard of this movie.
Are you serious? And I will agree with you, Matt. This movie is terrifying.
Right.
What year does it come out?
I have not seen it.
You haven't either?
1993?
Oh my word. No, not 1983.
Going on the list.
1993.
Yeah, he said 93 because he was young.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of it.
It is honestly, it is legit terrifying.
Who's in this? Matthew, tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us all about it.
It stars D.B. Sweeney, who's crying out in pain here, and it also has Robert Patrick.
Oh.
1993 Robert Patrick is pretty
Yeah.
on fire
Right
popularity. That's Apex Mountain
Absolutely.
Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
Henry Thomas from E.T.,
Yeah.
who
Right.
10 years later is in this movie.
Oh, so is this the good alien movie he's part of?
Oh my
And
god.
one of your boys, Peter Berg, is in this.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
Very
cool.
The plot of the movie is D.B. Sweeney and his buddies. They're all they have a contract to clear out some forest. One day they're out to work, And on the way back, they see what looks like fire in the sky. They get closer to it, and they come across a giant UFO. DB Sweeney gets out of the car, and he wants a closer look. Bright light hits him, like you saw in the poster, throws him across the clearing. All of his friends think he's dead, and they drive off. James Gardner, who is a sheriff from another town, comes in, and he's going to lead the investigation. He questions them all about what happens, and they tell him the amazing story that we saw a UFO and our buddy was killed by it. They go looking for the body. It's not found. Days later, he shows back up, naked in the rain, shivering and frightened. They take him to the hospital. After a couple of days there, he goes home to a welcome home party, and while there, has a bit of a panic attack and flashes back to what we see happen to him on the spacecraft, where he is examined by these terrifying aliens. He wakes up in a psychiatrist's office, and clearly he's just told the story of what happens. And it's up for, I mean, obviously his friends believe him because they saw it happen. James Gardner leaves saying, I don't believe it. He had 5 days to cook up that story. Absolutely not. But as far as we know, and at the end of the movie, him and DB Sweeney and Robert Patrick share some time, and it's like, according to them, it happened. Now, this is based on a true story.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing about it, is that it's all apparently real. Like it's not even like the based on a true story. It's like all facts are apparently real. So that's what scares it. Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, that's
sure.
Of course.
Yeah, so those Amityville horror guys.
There are recorded things of all this actually happening. Not the we there's no recorded things of the aliens happening, but all the stuff surrounding it actually happened. So
the real Travis Walton, who was played by DB Sweeney in the movie, claims he was abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
The story is the same. Him and his buddies were going home from work. They saw a light, UFO, took him up. He was gone for 5 days. 5 days later, he came back, and he tells a story about his time on the spacecraft. And all him and his coworkers took lie detector tests, and they came back truthful, I guess you could say. Inconclusive, but leaning towards they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Like I said, I saw the trailer for this movie, and terrifying.
It was a great trailer. I will say, for sure. It's a great trailer. I remember the trailer coming out, and it's great. It's a great trailer, and the way that it's shot, and especially when he starts like flashing back, it's just it's great, and the way they cut it is just, like I said, it's terrifying.
But like I said, throughout 95% of the movie, there are no creatures. It's the flashback, and he tells the story, and you get to see these creepy aliens. That makes it a creature feature in my book, and goes on my list at number 3.
It's fair.
Fun fact, I just Googled same director as D3, The Mighty Ducks.
That's true.
I just Googled. I've never heard of this movie. I'm like, oh man, that was his follow-up movie. He did wow. It's sandwiched between All I Want for Christmas and D3. He did this. That's amazing. That's wild.
That's amazing. It's amazing that he
good for Robert Lieberman.
Yeah, he apparently has a knack for horror. You'd be surprised, and this did well. I think it did fairly well.
Made its money back. I'm looking at 15 million budget, made 20 million.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's decent.
Cool. I've never even heard of it. That's awesome, Matt.
Yeah, nice.
All right, my number 3. We're going to continue on a very similar track. And so my number 3 is from a director that is a very well-known director now, who is directing who directed a movie from this year, which was a huge hit, and has directed a Marvel movie, and soon to be 2 Marvel movies. He was kicked off a Marvel movie, brought back on a Marvel movie. His name is James Gunn. His movie from 2006 is called Slither.
Yeah. On every list.
So
I love this one.
Slither is also about an alien who this alien meteor comes down cracks open, and there's this little slug inside of it, and it shoots this dart into Michael Rooker's chest. Michael Rooker, it's basically in this small town, and everyone knows each other in like typical small town. Michael Rooker is married to Elizabeth Banks, so it's a very older man with a younger woman. Elizabeth Banks is the high school sweetheart of the main character, which is Nathan Fillion, who plays the town sheriff. And so Nathan Fillion still harbors feelings for Elizabeth Banks, so there's kind of a little love triangle there. Michael Rooker, even though he's kind of a jerk, he loves his wife very much, and he kind of has this one night of indiscretion where he goes off and things, but he still doesn't cheat on his wife. And on his way back, and he's drunk, he comes across this meteor. The meteor shoots this dart into his chest, and he starts to mutate. And so eventually he gets a hold of he kidnaps this woman, starts doing feeding her terrible things, and this movie is like really, really gross. It's all practical effects. It's all looks very, very gross. And so he, like I said, this is him fully mutated. He becomes this very gross creature. So he kind of cute. And so he releases all these slugs. And so these slugs start going in throughout the town. The slugs go into people's mouths, and they become under his control, and they're kind of like a hive mind. And so they try to start taking over the town, and Nathan Fillion and a group of people from the town try to escape and fight back and figure out what's going on. And Nathan Fillion has to save Elizabeth Banks from Michael Rooker in the end. And so it's this movie, like all James Gunn movies, is hilarious. It's a very, very funny movie. It's got some great characters in it, very memorable, very well thought out characters. You feel for all the characters, and you have your typical, the mayor is a jerk, and he does that to perfection. You definitely are not rooting for him at all, but he's also hilarious. It's just a really, really fun movie that has a million references to old horror movies. There's one of the famous scenes in it is one of the slugs swimming in the bathtub with the teenage girl, which harkens back to Nightmare on Elm Street. And I mean, even the idea of it is like very 50s sci-fi horror. The whole idea of Martians coming down and invading a town. So there's like I said, it's an homage to a ton of different horror movies, but it done in this very fresh and fun way with killer special practical effects, and it's just a blast. It's a movie that I love to show to people when they're like, show me something fun. I'm like, all right. And I told Kim I showed this to people, a group of people that were just regular type folk, not into horror or anything, and they're like, show us a horror movie that's we're gonna have a good time with. And so I showed it to them, and they didn't speak to me for a while. They were not into it. I don't know what they wanted, but Slither was not it, and I was so bummed out that they just completely hated it. I thought the gross stuff would get them, which it did, obviously, but like they didn't like any of it, and I was like, ugh. I don't like any of you anyway. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I would say you don't want to know these people, right?
Yeah. I feel like I've come around. I remember when that movie came out and James Gunn was married to Jenna Fisher from The Office. Yeah. And I was really in The Office at the time. Yeah.
She played
I remember being like, her husband's such like a weird filmmaker. Like I remember this is like that was his debut, and then he follows it up with Super, and I'm just like, this guy's like so weird. He just looks weird. Like his movies, it's not my cup of tea. Then he comes out and he melds the two, and it's funny because his first writing project is like Scooby-Doo, and he does stuff like that. And then
he was doing trauma stuff.
Yeah.
He was doing all the trauma stuff and like Romeo and Juliet and
Scooby-Doo were his first two writing. But then he directs the really creepy and the weird and zany, and then he kind of melds it with like the family sensibility with Guardians. And then of course, like the rest of America, that's when I have a new appreciation for him. So obviously you go back and you watch it and you're like, oh, this is fun. And then you're right. It's the Fillion and it's the Rooker, and Rooker's his best friend, and Rooker's in everything he's ever done. So it kind of, you go back to it now that I'm a little bit older and more removed, and you're like, okay, this is fun. He's got a weird personality, but he's not just a weird guy. He can play within the confines of a commercial sandbox. And that's what I like about him. But I was one of the guys that was like, I want no part of this movie 15 years ago. And then now I'm like, oh, it led to cool stuff, and like now he's really funny on Twitter, so now he's my guy.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. You guys are nuts. You guys keep talking and going, my movies are so scary, my movies are horror, my movies are this. Guys, monsters can be cute and funny, and they have feelings, and I learned that in 2001. Monsters Incorporated. Yay. So my number 3 is Monsters, Inc. It's a whole world of creatures and monsters, and they're just trying to get on with their day. And they work and they feed off the scares of humans. We all know the premise. And ultimately a human comes into their world, and they bond with little Boo there, and they have to keep her away from the seedy underbelly and the corruption of their business and their world. And ultimately, as they go through, and you find out that the ending is laughter is more powerful than scares and all this, and as it changes. But I remember seeing this movie. I saw this movie Christmas in theaters. It came out late November. I saw it, ended, around Christmas, my birthday, 2001, and very enjoyable. This was right when Pixar was really, I think, taking off mainstream. They had just come off Toy Story 2, so now they're branching into some really original stuff. And this was where they were really becoming a household name for that. So I just think the creation of the monsters, Steve Buscemi as Randall and James Coburn as Waternoose, who becomes the villainous big bad, the head of the company. They all have very, dynamic looks, and the way that they are animated and the sounds, it's all really fun and original, and seeing, a whole world of these creatures and how they interact. And, John Goodman as Sully is this big furry creature, and Mike is a short, kind of slimy, grotesque eyeball. And it's kind of fun. So I knew I wanted to put it somewhere. So for the fact that it doesn't have to be scary, it can be quite fun. Monsters, Inc. was my number 3 that I wanted to shout out today.
Yay.
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm trying to remember if I've seen that movie all the way through.
Oh, wow. That's insane to me. This is a huge movie for me, man.
It is.
Really
I
big.
remember thinking, too, I put it up there with like Nightmare Before Christmas and this, and the fact that these are like the animated movies with the smartest premises I've seen. Like the premise and the concept of it is very original and very fun. That they fuel and feed their city off of children's scares in the closet. And one thing, if I can shout out the closet third act, where they are going in and out of closets all around the world in a game of takeaway, is like legitimately one of the best action scenes in an animated film. That it's just like animated perfectly, and then the concept that they are jumping and being chased and finding the doors, and how Randall's like slinking in and out of the doors to see which one they went into, to follow them to Beijing, to Africa, back up to Canada, and they're just crisscrossing the world, getting away, keeping Boo away from them is good stuff. And funny enough, the one thing I saw, I don't know one here, I don't think watches Succession, but there is a meme that somebody tweeted at the end when Waternoose is explaining his plan. I hope you've seen that part, Matt. But when Waternoose is explaining his plan, and he's like, I would kidnap 1,000 kids if it meant keeping this business operational. And someone tweeted, they're like, this is literally the plot of every episode of Succession. And they put the theme song in the background, and we're seeing Brian Cox in that role. I'm like, oh, this is very funny. So I can't help but watch Succession and think of Monsters, Inc. now. So my number 3, creatures don't have to be scary, and they're not going to be on my list. Maybe they will later.
Yay, I love that. The non-scary creature feature. I think that's great. And I'm actually going to take it in a different direction, a non-scary creature feature for my number 3 too. But let me give you a little bit of context about my list, because I thought that my ghost movie list was going to be harder to come up with because I love ghost stories. But oh, was I wrong? And I think you kind of alluded to this, that, defining what a creature feature is so difficult because it could be aliens or, just about anything. So I found it impossible to come up with my all-time favorite creature feature list. And so I made an executive decision. And because I kind of went a little bit more old school with the ghost movie list, I decided that what I was going to do is create a list of my favorite modern creature features. So this is creature features from the past 20 or so years.
Awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now you're talking my language.
And one of the reasons I did it is because, especially with new technology, filmmakers are able to kind of create these, really unique, interesting stories these days. And a lot of, I was thinking about all my favorites, and it was like a lot of old school stuff, but then a lot of really new ones are becoming my favorites. So I kind of wanted to celebrate that. So I made my list. I was really happy with it. And I realized as I was kind of thinking about all of the movies that each one of them kind of represents sort of a modern update to some of the classic creatures or creature genre, genre of creature films. So I thought it was kind of a nice little sampling of some of my favorite genres. So my number 3, I am going to start off the way I did with my ghost movie list. And I'm going to start off with a Guillermo del Toro film.
Of course.
Of course, because how can you make a monster, modern monster movie list
So excited to see
without
which
acknowledging, the man that loves monsters more than humans, right? So now I struggled between this one and Pan's Labyrinth. I went back and forth, back and
You
forth.
went with this one?
Then
this one.
the one that I ended up with that I felt kind of fit the theme a little bit better was 2017's The Shape of Water.
Cool.
So so this one, this is a love story. So I'm going a different direction. We're not getting into scary movies right away. We're going to go a love story between a monster and a human. Or a creature and a human. We define monster in a different way in the Guillermo del Toro world, right?
That's right.
So this is sort of set in the 60s. So it's kind of against the backdrop of the Cold War and the Civil Rights Movement, where there was a lot of fear of the other, fear of people who are different than you are. So it really kind of fits with the themes in the movie. And this is a story between a humanoid amphibious creature played by Doug Jones. And he is brought from his home in, I believe it was South America, to this secret government lab in Baltimore for testing and experimenting. And the other character is a cleaning lady who is mute, and her name is Eliza, and she's played by Sally Hawkins. And she one night goes in there and befriends this creature. So she starts a little friendship by bringing him hard-boiled eggs and breaking out her record player and playing him some music. And ultimately they develop a romantic relationship. And so it kind of is this nice twist. I was reading a little bit about the movie, and Guillermo del Toro said that he wanted to create a movie where the Gill man ends up with the girl. In the movie, but it doesn't. And so this is kind of a twist on that, which I thought was really kind of interesting. So it's kind of like this one's kind of like a variation of the creature from the Black Lagoon, and with a little bit of Splash kind of mixed up in there too.
There you go. Yeah.
And they have this story kind of centered around the love story, but then also at the end, because creatures never get the respect they deserve. Governments always want to, kill them and take them apart. So it's about saving him from the lab, saving them from being euthanized and experimented on. And there's a quote from the beginning narration, because Del Toro always has narration at the beginning. This is a tale of love and loss and the monster that tried to destroy it all. And this is a very Del Toro thing, a signature in all of his movies, that there's always, creatures are not something to be feared. The true monsters are humans, right? Mm-hmm. And so in this movie, the monster that they're referring to in this quote is Colonel Strickland, played by Michael Shannon, who is I mean, he's like
Awesome.
one of the ultimate villain actors.
Yes.
He does every single role so well, right? And he's this horrible man. I mean, all of Del Toro's villains are just vile human beings. They are like this guy. He has no respect for the creature. He's the one that dragged him out of his home. He's racist, sexist, misogynist. Well, that's a little bit both. And he even like washes his hands before going to bathroom, but doesn't wash them afterwards. I mean, he's just like a vile human being. And he wants to ultimately, what he thinks is the best course of action is to vivisect the creature. So they have, so Liza and her friends try to save him. They try to get him out of this situation. Now, her friends are Zelda, played by Octavia Spencer, who is this kind of maternal friend, very compassionate, and ultimately helps her get out the creature. And also her neighbor, Giles, played by Richard Jenkins, who is this struggling artist. He's trying to get back his career after battling alcoholism. He's also gay. So the friends surrounding Eliza are, people that are kind of part of disenfranchised groups during the 60s. And that's kind of why it works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really well done. Just the complex characters surrounding Eliza and the creature and their love story is really wonderful. I also love it because it's aesthetically beautiful. There's all sorts of tones of muted blues and greens evoking that watery feeling. And it contrasts with like the harsh yellow tones of Strickland and his home and the government. It's also, I always love the music. And in fact, it actually won the Oscar for Best Original Score.
Mm-hmm.
And the composer, I'm going to mispronounce this, I apologize. Alexandre, is it Desplat or Desplat?
Yeah.
Desplat. Anyway, he was talking about his music, and he kind of wanted to evoke rolling waves like water. And he has two themes that at the beginning they're separate, and by the end they merge together. They create this soundtrack for the end. And I thought that was really, really neat because it mirrors what's going on. And also music plays a theme in the, it kind of helps the creature communicate with Eliza, what brings them together. And there's even a dream sequence where they do this like 1930s dance number. It's really, really cool. So because of all of this, and because it has a lot of Del Toro elements that, very predictable. He has kind of a formula, but it still is very unique, and it kind of elevates his work. I think this is it's definitely it has a different feel than some of the other movies that he's created,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still just wonderful. And I'm not the only one that likes it because it won Best Picture in 2018. So that's why that's my number 3.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the connections to Creature from Black Lagoon. I was struggling to put Creature from the Black Lagoon on here because I love it. It was one of the very first 3D movies I ever went to see.
Oh,
so
cool.
I love Creature, and people have speculated that it has a direct connection because it's like came from the same area that they took them from in shape.
Yeah.
So they said that this could be a
pseudo sequel or spiritual sequel or something.
Yeah. Which
cool.
is really neat. Like I love that whole side of it, that he, basically, like you said, expanding on what they did in Creature from the Black Lagoon, where Creature from the Black Lagoon is a tragedy, right? And ultimately the creature gets killed. Spoiler alert from a Universal movie, but like in this one, like you said, he gets the girl. It's not a tragedy. It's a love story that is beautiful and ends well.
It's interesting.
Spoilers.
Oh, sorry. It's interesting you say that because I was reading some interviews about this movie, and they said that the Strickland character, if this movie had been made in 1950s, he would be a hero.
That's right.
Right. He wouldn't be a villain. He'd actually be a hero because monsters were portrayed as this, evil things that were going to, come out and take over the world and, do horrible things to women and children, and now it's a whole new reimagining of what a creature is. So
a lot of people would call Gaston the hero of Beauty and the Beast.
There's one of them.
There's one right here. There's one right here. Goddamn right.
Number 2.
Oh my god.
All right, Matt, number 2. What do you got?
My number 2 instantly went on my list, and I'm not sure if it's going to be on anybody else's today, but it went from like on the list to like talk about it. Honorable mentioned. I was like, it's going to be on the list somewhere, but eventually it had to be talked about because I know it's a favorite of somebody else here. My number 2 is Little Shop of Horrors.
Yay!
Hooray.
Oh, I am so glad you put this on their list.
And so
I
it's
guess
not
you wouldn't have because you did
No?
the last modern, so that makes sense.
Oh,
I had predicted that this would be your
right.
number 1.
Yeah, and it fought for number 1 as well.
Yay.
But Little Shop of Horrors is, of course, based on the Broadway musical of the same name, which is based on the Roger Corman film that he filmed over in just 24 hours of the same name with the same story. Seymour is played by Rick Moranis, and he works in a flower shop with a cranky old boss. Business is doing badly, and Seymour has the bright idea of putting this strange and unusual plant he found in Chinatown in front of the window, and maybe it'll drum up business. And it starts to, and people want to come see the strange and unusual plant. And it eventually gets sick. Seymour's been reading up on how to take care of it, and he can't figure it out. He gets a cut on his finger, rose thorn prick, and the plant wakes up and starts, with the sucking motion, and he feeds him the blood, and it gets bigger, and he discovers, well, this is what it wants, so this is how I have to do it. He goes from feeding the blood from his fingers to eventually the plant starting to talk. Feed me. And soon discovers that he has a taste for human flesh, and the only way to keep him alive, and if you want to stay prosperous, you'll keep me alive, and to keep me alive, you got to start feeding me people. And I won't do the whole movie because everyone should see it.
Yeah.
Actually, I've never seen it beginning to end. I've seen parts. I've seen like the Martin dance scene, but I think I saw it as a kid. I faintly remember watching this like at my grandmother's house. So I would have been like 5 or 6, so way before my time.
Sure.
But I remember bits. Like I remember he's in all black, and then he puts the coat, and he's like really rock and roll.
Mhm.
So I remember like it flashes, but I haven't visited it, and that's at least 25 years.
Right. Steve Martin plays an abusive dentist boyfriend, and he has probably, arguably, the best song in the whole musical.
Right? That is pretty good.
Oh.
But like I said, I'm mentioning it's a musical, and it's one of like 3 or 4 musicals I have on my iPod, full soundtrack,
Nice.
and I listen to it all the time. I've
It
seen
is great.
2 stage productions of it in my life, and I saw the movie in theaters. I think at Cineplex did a night with it, and I've owned it for a long time.
That's awesome.
Matt, why don't you tell us who directed this?
It was directed by Frank Oz.
Yes, it
Hey!
Muppet fame of Miss Piggy and
Miss
Grover
Piggy.
and Yoda of fame.
Yes.
And there's a great story about when the movie came out on DVD for the first time. Frank Oz originally shot the ending to match what happened in the stage production,
Yes.
and test audience hated it.
Oh, it's
They're
I hate that
wrong.
so much because they're wrong. It's so
They are
good.
just wrong.
In
It's so
interviews, he
good.
said everyone applauded every song, and they were with me the entire time until the end.
Oh,
So we changed the ending.
I hate it.
Such a
And
travesty.
when the movie went out on DVD, the ending, it was just black and white footage, was added on as a special feature. And David Geffen was in charge of production, Geffen Pictures, Warner Brothers, and stuff like that. He put it on the DVD. Frank Oz says, "No, I didn't want that on the DVD. I didn't want anybody to see that. It was supposed to be burned up or something." So those DVDs got recalled, and for a long time was a very pricey, very valuable DVD if you could find it with
I
those
didn't know
special
that.
features.
Yeah.
Now, in years past, it's recently on Blu-ray, and it's been added back on as a special feature. So those DVDs have lost considerable value.
Also on YouTube, if you want to go look at it on YouTube.
Oh, is it?
It is on YouTube, and because that's why
after the advent of YouTube is probably one of the first videos up on there.
Which is if you haven't seen it, if you love Little Shop of Horrors, you haven't seen that ending, go and watch it because it is amazing. And it is like
So much better.
it's so much better. It's so much. I don't like. Come on. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Like I get that it was the 80s and everyone wanted happy endings, but like, come on. It's amazing. It's an amazing, and it's way more suiting ending to the rest of the film. It makes more sense within the context of the film.
Well, it's the Faustian legend, right?
That's right.
So the ending fits better with that than the shiny Hollywood ending.
Yes. Amen.
So
awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, and you said you saw a couple of stage productions. Did you happen to see one in 2016 here in Windsor?
I believe I did. Yes.
Then you saw me perform.
I
I was one of the urchins.
Yes, that's right.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So that was in February of 2016.
Yep. Very
a
good.
friend of mine is a big Ashman and Menken fan, and they did the songs for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they also did Beauty and the Beast and a couple of other Disney music. Little Mermaid was
Little Mermaid and some of Aladdin, I think, too.
And she had never seen Little Shop of Horrors, the movie. And we talked about it. It's like, you never saw that? It's like, no, I wanted to see it on stage first. So I invited her to go see that. And we had a great time.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. Small world.
All right. We're going to go to my number 2. So my number 2 and my number 1 are legitimately my 1 and 2 horror movies of the 21st century. These are the top of the top for me. My number 2 is a movie that I saw probably 3 times in the theater. I just was obsessed with it. It came out in 2014 and was when it was released, but it wasn't a wide release. It was released to the festivals, a small limited run in the major cities, New York, Los Angeles, but it didn't get its full release until 2015, which is when I saw it. And by that time, it had created this massive buzz because people were going crazy over it. That movie is by a director named David Robert Mitchell, and it is called It Follows.
Yay! Oh, I love this one.
So It Follows. It revolves around this girl who's first year in college. Her name's Jay, and she is, a typical teenager who lives in Detroit. And I loved it right off the hop. They live in suburban Detroit, and I was like, okay, you got me already on Detroit. It's in Detroit. She goes on this date with this guy that she's been dating, and on that first date, he is acting really weird. They play this fun little game, which is like when you hear it, it's actually pretty fun. They have this game called I'm trying to think what they called it, but so they like, who would you switch lives with? So there are people watching, and they have to pick out who the other person would switch lives with. And you're like, okay, I found somebody. You see if you can guess which person it is, and I'll tell you why I'd rather be that person. And so they do that for a while, and so they're in the theater, but the movie's about to start, and he does one last one. Okay, I've got one. And she says, looking around, she said, oh, it's that girl. He says, it's that girl in the yellow dress up there. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Who is that? Like, I don't see anybody. And he's like, you don't see that? And so you're like, no. And he's like, okay, we got to get out of here. And so they take off. He's like, he takes off, and they go on another date, and it goes really well. They end up having sex in his car. It's going really well, and they're talking, and all of a sudden he chloroforms her and ties her to the chair like this here. And so she's freaking out, obviously, and he starts explaining to her, you have to listen to me, because this will save your life. I passed something along to you that somebody passed along to me, and this thing is going to follow you until it catches you and kills you, and it's going to walk directly towards you very slowly, but it always knows where you are, and it's always going to walk directly to you, no matter where it is, no matter where you are. And if it catches you, it will murder you. And so if it murders her, then it moves back to him. And so what she has to do is have sex with somebody in order to pass it along. And so she at first she doesn't believe him, and then he shows her the person, and this thing can look like anybody that you know. It can look like a random person, and you will never know what it looks like until it gets it. And so this is it. It is disguised as some old lady, and she's at her college, and it's coming down the hall. It was slowly moving at her, and she calls out, and you're like, "Hello!" And the girls behind her don't see the thing. It's they're like, "What? Like, who are you? Like, what are you talking about?" And so it's constantly, heading towards her at all times throughout the movie, and it is intense. It is. I won't do it justice as far as the intensity of it, but is incredible. So you're gonna say something?
No, you cut out there for a second.
Oh, okay. So it's incredible. It goes there has these constant 360-degree shots, and everything is a wide shot. So you're constantly and what's great about this movie is it's great for repeat viewings. It has these wide shots where you're constantly scanning for it. You're like you're looking at the people. Is that person it? Is that person it? Could that thing be it? And so you're constantly watching in the background and thing. And like there are scenes where there'll be that guy or her. They're like, "Do you see that person? Is that person? Can you see that person?" The other people are like, "Yep, I see that person." Okay, good. And so like this constant paranoia. And this is a kind of a new concept that's taking from a bunch of different concepts. You have obviously allusions to the Thing here, where it can look like different people, and even it has a very John Carpenter score, which is by a guy who calls himself Disaster Piece, and it is like incredible score. It is one of the best scores, like I said, in the last 20 years of horror scores. It is perfect. It is a perfect score for this film. It's this movie, like I said, it's a movie that you can continually watch, and you'll definitely continue to find new things to find and enjoy. And there's a lot of little like Easter eggs in there that you can continue to find. It's just such a well-crafted movie from beginning to end. It's just intense, and I love it. It is definitely, like I said, is my number 2 favorite horror movie since year 2000. So and I like a lot of horror movies, so that can tell you how much I love this film. So
Nice.
That is from 2014. It Follows.
This is around the time when you and I were talking, and I was saying that there's like a resurgence of like well-crafted smart horror, and it was like Don't Breathe, it was this, it was Hush, and it led with Get Out the next year, or 16, and then like I said, this is just the first boom of like really smart Blumhouse, A24, like putting and well-crafted horror and like smart. And this is, I remember when I was listening to Clyde and Movie Talk a lot, they was just at the forefront of what they talked about was like these movies. So this one was like really, really big.
Yeah, it was a huge movie, and like I've heard that people like badmouth it, and like it's a movie that people love to hate. And the reason why they start hating is they start, like, well, what if you fly across to Australia and then all you gotta do is this, or all you gotta do is that, or all you gotta do is that? I'm like, just stop. Like, that's
just enjoy it.
Just enjoy the movie. The movie builds this like mythos within the movie itself. And I've heard the director describe it as kind of like this nightmare, like it's a nightmare logic. And he had it actually spawned from this ongoing nightmare that he had of somebody constantly following him, and that's where he got the idea from. And so like when you watch it, that's what it feels like. You get those nightmares where you're running from somebody and you can't get away. They're constantly behind you, and like it has that feel where it feels like a dream. And it's so you start dissecting it and like looking for plot holes or whatever. You're missing the point of the movie. Just enjoy it for what it is, and if you do, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, awesome. So that was a big movie for you. We're gonna talk about a big creature feature from my childhood. Not scary, but again, I was so happy to put this on the list. I didn't know where I wanted to. I've been saving it for a few other lists. This was going to be my number 1 for a while. notched it down for a movie that is just well crafted and better than this, and I can admit that. But for this movie, and I didn't want to use it because of the fact that it does have, the concept of aliens, but I thought in thinking of it that the aliens were done so much differently and that each had their own personality, and kind of the mutation that they undergo leading to the end of the film. They, in essence, take the role of creatures more so than just a standard alien film. Biggest movie in the world when I was 10, with the biggest movie star of my lifetime. And we're going with 1997's Men in Black.
Nice.
And this could have come up on about 4 lists already. But the fact I wanted to save it for this one, and I knew that it was going to save for creature features in the fact that, yes, they are hunting aliens and the worst scum of the universe in essence. And it's Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones teaming up. And, again, this was one of the biggest movies. Spielberg directed, Will Smith starring vehicle, hot off Independence Day a year prior. Didn't want to do it, told Spielberg no. Spielberg famously said, do not use your brain for this, use mine. And this movie's going to be a hit and you're going to be a star. And he was. Thank you. So the reason I give it the edge on being a creature feature is really what they do with Vincent D'Onofrio's character.
Mm-hmm.
He's not how he's kind of like an alien who is kind of, more of a cockroach, more of like that primal sort of third world creature from The Thing or something like that, wearing the skin suit, the Egger suit, wearing the Egger suit, and how he mutates and slowly goes through the process with his skin falling off and stuff. And then at the end, when he takes his final form, he's more creature than ever. But like I said, as far as, it almost made my mentor list. It almost made my comp list. So I gotta put this on anything. This is one of the best movies. And as for as much as I love Will Smith's my favorite movie star. He will be my favorite movie star till the day I die. I don't think this magic of 1 has ever been replicated. I don't particularly like 2. 3's okay. And I think the reboot is unwatchable. So I don't think they've ever managed to capture, and I can admit that I don't think they've ever managed to capture how magical the first one was. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun, it's a deep roster of great characters and famous. There's a lot of heat check performances in it between D'Onofrio, Rip Torn, Tony Shalhoub, and the list goes on and through. And like I said, as they solve the mystery and save the universe, and they get the galaxy from Orion's belts, and you'll get that if you've seen this movie. The Men in Black, the first one, when I was 10, banging soundtrack, and just everything together. Rick Baker, he was doing, this movie. When I'm 10, I'm seeing it for Will, and then afterwards, when you go back to it, it's the Danny Elfman score. Mm-hmm. It's Rick Baker's, practical effects melded with CGI and his creations. And I was just reading up on it earlier, and how many creatures were a mesh between Barry Sonnenfeld like the head, but Spielberg like the body, and vice versa. And a lot of the creatures and stuff that came up were a mishmash of equal of both parts. I like this one, but I don't like this, but I want that fused with this, and kind of them all working together. It's just great Hollywood stuff. So as far as the creatures in the final third act, when he takes his full creature horrific form, Men in Black is my number 2 creature feature.
Very nice.
It's very, the final creature form is very like a kaiju, like a very giant monster.
Yeah, and it's like the whole cockroach thing gives to me the edge over just aliens.
Yeah.
Because then I was like, if I put Men in Black, I'm like, where do you stop with like better alien films than it? And I can acknowledge that. And I knew that there's way more that are better films than this. But then I was like, they're more so creatures than they are aliens, because there's just a wide variety and there's hundreds of them and they all look different. And there's not just one, not like Independence Day, there's not just one look to them all. And like I said, it's the D'Onofrio skin thing, the mutation that kind of echoes back to like body horror. And then you're right, ultimately the final form he takes when he's this 15-foot cockroach creature. Yeah. And that's more creature, like I've been using it quite a bit, than alien.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even like the emphasis is on like the whole purpose of them is to get all these different aliens, right? The whole plot revolves around.
He's not snarling; he's sneezing. He's just working out. I feel someone bust my ass when I'm on the Stairmaster. It's just guys. Will Smith. I'm gonna go Will Smith. Will Smith's gonna appear on a lot of lists from now to the end of the year.
All right, Kim.
All right. So
Number two.
my number 2 is a sci-fi action adventure horror comedy by the producers of Shaun of the Dead. It is
Yay.
2011's Attack the Block.
Nice.
I wanted to put it on my list so bad. I'm so thankful.
Very
This
cool.
my list was so deep. This was like my 6 or 7. I'm so thankful you put it on.
Yay, yeah, I'm so glad. And I'm so glad you know about it, because there's a lot of people that I tell about, I say, hey, have you ever seen Attack the Block? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I've never seen it. It is such a fun movie, as you guys know. So the premise is, what happens when aliens come to South London? This is kind of like an area of London that's a little bit rougher, lots of youth street gangs, and they kind of have a bad reputation in the media of being, the kind of thugs and things like that. So the director, and I believe he also wrote this, Joe Cornish, he wanted to kind of ask the question of, who would be your first line of defense if aliens came to South London? He's kind of inspired by the movie Signs, and he realizes the answer, it's not the cops, it's these street gangs would most likely be your first line of defense. So at the beginning of this film, there's this street gang of teenage boys, and it's led by a character named Moses, who is played by young John Boyega, before he did his stint in the Star Wars universe. And this is actually, I believe, his debut feature film.
Yep.
So I thought that was kind of neat. And this gang of teenage boys they're shooting off fireworks on Guy Fawkes night in their neighborhood, and they run into a young nursing student played by Jodie Whittaker, who's the current Doctor Who. And they end up, so it's got all sorts of names, right, that we know now. And they end up mugging her. So they take her purse and her jewelry. And in the middle of the mugging, a meteorite comes down. So always watch for those meteorites, because they always come with aliens, right?
That's all they get here.
Yeah. And when they go to check it out, they come face to face with this sort of smallish alien who scratches Moses, and then they chase it down and kill it. And so after they kill it, they realize what they have is this sort of alien creature. So they take it to their the highly secure weed room of the local drug dealer that lives in their apartment building, Ron, played by Nick Frost, who is hilarious. He calls his character like the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but with more weed. So he's
Awesome.
such a great character. And he's not in the film a whole lot, but when he is on screen, he just really, he has a commanding presence, and just hilarious. So as they're kind of like thinking about how to monetize their discovery, they see other meteorites fall, and they go, oh, there's more of them. But what they don't realize that these are the ones that follow are the much larger, much more vicious male creatures, male aliens, who are after the female version of their species, that was the alien that they just killed. So these huge hulking, they call them gorilla wolf type things, are after them, and they're kind of trying to find their mate, and they're chasing them around their neighborhood, killing everybody in their path, and they're just really interesting, very original type creatures. So the actual creature design is a gorilla suit, but they kind of have a stylized head where it doesn't have eyes. So it's all this kind of like black furry kind of creature. They kind of look like dogs. They kind of run on all fours, but they've got these huge jaws that are like day glow blue.
Mhm.
And so that kind of creates this eerie, you kind of see them through a window, and you see the blue of their teeth coming through. And it's really, really scary when you see them all together. And so basically the aliens are attacking the neighborhood, and this gang of boys have to fight back and protect their neighborhood. So why do I love this? Well, it's fast paced. The action is really tight, funny moments, some really hilarious lines. The creatures are unique. So it's kind of the modern update to the alien invasion kind of movie. But I always love a good horror movie with a social commentary. And that was one of the goals of the director. So he wanted to sort of, he sees how street youth are kind of depicted in the media. and he wanted to kind of change the way we saw them. So they become the heroes of this film. He starts off the film with, you know, how they're typically depicted in the media as, like, you know, wearing masks and hoodies and stuff. But as we go through the film, we learn about their backstories, and we kind of see them more as people rather than the gang, and they become the heroes. They're the ones that will protect us, you know, from the alien invasion. And there's a really nice scene kind of in the middle of all the action where Sam, who's the nursing student, and the boys are kind of sitting around and talking, and they're sharing their stories about how they've been treated by the cops. So it kind of talks about the social injustice that are experienced by people of color. And so it kind of is a nice moment where they get to understand each other. So it's kind of nice to have this really fun movie, but also with a little bit of social justice kind of mixed up in there. So for those reasons, that's why that's my number 2.
Nice.
Lovely. This is like one movie I just want to say. It's similar to, I think we talked about either there or off camera. I think the fun thing about when Daniel Craig was announced as Bond, you go back and you say, what has this guy done? And then you discover Layer Cake.
Mm-hmm.
And then when John Boyega's announced in Star Wars, I think he was probably cast late 2012, early 2013. You're like, I've never seen this guy in anything. And then everyone, podcasts that I was listening to, myself included, went out and watched Attack the Block because you got to see who this guy is. Then he becomes a mega star, and he's in a bunch of other stuff now too, and he's a household name. And I go to the casting in the Star Wars franchise. To even hearing about this movie, and then Joe Cornish has gone on; he's a big name, and Boyega as well. So, like I said, that's just how I know, and that's always fun when a big franchise casts, you know, an indie darling, and then knowing and going back and revisiting those indie movies is like one of the most fun things you can do, being a film fan.
Yeah. And he really stands out in this film. He's so good as Moses. He really does a good job.
Yeah, okay. If Mike was on this episode, he would definitely have this on his list. Mike is a huge Attack the Block fan. Nice. We watched this movie when it came out, and big fans just because we were on the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost tour when all that happened. So yes. So when that happened, like so Mike would definitely have this on his list. He loves this movie.
You're welcome, Mike.
Yeah, there you go. All right, honorable mentions. Matt, what do you got?
Honorable mentions. My honorable mentions include Lake Placid.
Yes.
Yay.
Love Lake Placid.
Yes.
Jaws in upstate New York.
Yes. With Oliver Platt just giving a huge comic performance.
And Predator.
Yeah. What is that poster?
I'm so happy.
I know.
That poster makes it look like it's like a buddy cop.
Man, Carl Weathers is so fucking cool. Legit, that's what I thought he could be more my guy.
That poster.
This was the only Predator poster I could find with Predator on it because I wanted to show the creature in the creature feature.
That is hilarious.
I can't use Predator. Predator's like my 6th favorite film. I used Predator on my birth year films, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to double down and put Predator as my number 1 again. But
oh my gosh.
I'm so thankful. I thought I'd do it. I'm so thankful you have it too.
Yes.
Yay.
It is a fantastic film.
Nice.
All right. My honorable mentions. This is could be considered a guilty pleasure, but I feel no guilt for loving this movie because I honestly think it is a fantastic and perfect film set in Perfection, Nevada. And that is Tremors.
Kevin Bacon. Tremors on a lot of lists. It's high up.
It is
nice.
Honestly, the guilty pleasure comes in the sequels. I love this entire franchise, like unironically, other than the Wild West one. The Wild West one is hot garbage. All of the rest ones, including
Fred
ones
Ward's look good there.
Oh, Fred Ward is my guy.
Money in that shot. Good for him.
The chemistry between those two in this movie
is
unbelievable.
Bacon,
I love this film. And obviously spawned Michael Gross into having a gigantic career of Tremor movies, which sadly is now over. He started in his last Tremors movie, and the last one, Shrieker Island. All right, and obviously there was going to be one character that was going to make this list no matter what, and that is my man, the ultimate kaiju, the king of all monsters, Godzilla. This is destroy. So I debated whether to go with the original which is the best of the movies and is actually a legitimately amazing movie with a lot of like great commentary on like Japan and like post Hiroshima, Japan. But I went with the more fun Destroy All Monsters, which is the Avengers of the Godzilla movies. It literally has every monster all in the same movie. And they're all fighting King Ghidorah. And there's aliens involved that take control of them. They destroy a bunch of like major cities. It is the most fun of all Godzilla movies because it is nonstop monster fighting action. Monsters are Godzilla's destroying New York. Rodan's destroying Moscow. You got Rodan, I think, or not Rodan. Mothra is destroying the Arc de Triomphe. It is literally just monster fest. So when I think of a creature feature, I think of kaiju films, and there is no more kaiju than Destroy All Monsters that features 11 kaiju in it in total.
All the kaiju, yeah.
All of the kaiju.
I'm going to do my honorable mentions. I'm very proud to say that my honorable mentions, I do kind of stick to mainstream and quality with this. And I'm going to hit a couple home runs with Present Company. And my number 4 is The Thing. We watched this movie with a more dedicated eye, I think at the start of quarantine last year or winter. Just a fantastic mystery going through. It's got, body horror and torture and the way, the mutations and incredible Kurt Russell performance, as well as the great supporting staff too. Just like the secluded, very Agatha Christie style novel where, they're being depleted one by one and what's the story in any shape. It's incredible. And I didn't want to put it on, and I'm like, it's going to be on everyone's list. But it's truly one of the best movies in the last 50 years. And that's 1979's Alien. You have the facehugger. And I just literally cannot stress that this movie is probably one of the best constructed films I will ever have on a list. Like, I cannot deny that. So like I said, I wanted to put, Predator. I rewatched Predators, which is okay. But then I'm like, am I going to put Predators over Alien? No, I like Alien more. And Alien is just a more incredible movie. This should have probably been my number 1. But it's a fantastically put together film. And like I said, I was going to go for quality and preference and my honorable mentions. So that's why I have The Thing and Alien. So
I just watched the 4K today of Alien. And oh my gosh, it looks incredible. You're right. Like the production, Ridley Scott's production between this and Blade Runner is unmatched. Like it just looks so good. I'm
going to be doing a Ridley Scott filmography rewatch leading into House of Gucci next month.
Oh,
so
nice.
Want to see Last Duel with me tomorrow?
I went the other day.
Oh, did you actually? Okay, I'm going to go to a day movie. It made $8,000.
Wow.
It was a huge bust. It was a huge bust.
Wow.
Ooh.
It made a little more than that, but
then
not
I need
much.
to go. I need to go see it then because it
had $110 million budget, and I honestly think it made $8 million opening weekend. They released it against Halloween Kills too.
Yeah, that's bad. That's a bad idea.
But
all right.
Okay.
Kim,
I'm so
mentions.
Yeah, I'm so glad you put Alien in The Thing because
of course.
One of my if I had gone old school, because that was my other option, Aliens and The Thing would have been on my list. So I'm so happy that somebody put them on the list. Okay, so my honorable mentions. When I decided to do the modern creature features, I wanted to keep it to 2000 and beyond. But I had to put my number 5 on this because I love this so much. It is also one of my guilty pleasures. Although I don't like that term. I always hate using that term. But when I looked at the date, it was 1999. So I'm like, so close. But, close enough. And it's my list. I can do whatever I want to, right? So my number 5, my honorable mention is Deep Blue Sea.
It's good. It's a big movie too, man.
And I love this. This is the updated, one of my favorite updated versions of the kind of killer shark genre. And like I said, it's my guilty pleasure because I love so much about it. LL Cool J gives one of the best performances as Preacher in this film. I just love what he does.
And he lives.
Take him back to the ghetto. He wants to go back to the ghetto.
And the other reason I love this is because it has my all-time favorite death scene in it. And you know what I'm talking about.
They wrote
right?
that scene and then the movie around that. That was like, I'm honestly convinced like Snakes on a Plane was like the title, and then they're like, we got the title, let's just write a movie. They're like, let's have a dramatic speech from an established acclaimed actor and then kill him. And then they're like, let's just fill a movie around that.
I saw the sequel 47 meters down uncaged. It's the sequel to the second one, and they totally ripped that scene off in there. And I was like, this is like I was already hating that movie already, but then they ripped off that scene. I was like, come on, you can't rip off that scene.
But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. My number 4 is a modern take on the Godzilla movies, which is Cloverfield.
Right.
And that's 2008's Cloverfield, directed by Matt Reeves. And as I was watching this, I forgot how much I love this movie. It is so well done. It's basically a found footage film of what it would be like to be at ground level in New York while a giant monster is attacking it. And it's such a great film of its time because you can't really do this type of movie without like smartphones and video cameras, right? So I thought there was a really nice twist on the Godzilla type genre of movies. And just a little anecdote about personal connection to this. When I saw the movie title, Cloverfield, I was like, oh, Cloverfield, that's like the name of a street that I used to, when I was living in Santa Monica, California. It was a few streets away from me. And I didn't think much of it until I was doing research for this episode. And I looked at the origin of the name, and sure enough, I was right, because it is the name of the freeway exit that J.J. Abrams takes to get to his office in Santa Monica.
That's
so
funny.
I'm like,
I didn't know that.
Hey, personal connection in a way. So I thought it was amusing.
We talked about trailers, great trailers. Cloverfield had one of the greatest trailers of all time, where with the Statue of Liberty head going flying down the street, and that was the hook into it. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, holy crap, I need to see this immediately. Like hook, line, and sinker, they had me on that trailer. And it gave away nothing. Like it was amazing because they hits you with that hook. An amazing hook, and then literally reveals nothing.
Yeah, that's the beauty of their marketing strategy, is that they never like revealed what the monster was. They didn't reveal it was a monster movie. It was just like this big mystery, and it was really, I remember it generated so much buzz around it. So
definitely
very effective.
All right, number 1s, let's go.
All right, my number 1 actually got mentioned a minute ago.
Oh no!
You can't mess with perfection. Tremors.
I legit Mike, it's Alien. I can't mess with perfection. French poster. Why did you go with the French poster, Matthew?
Is it the French poster? Oh, I didn't see it.
I'm just playing. I knew you.
No, legit. It was tough to find a good version of the poster. I was trying to. I also had that similar task of trying to find that poster. It was tough to find.
Funny. Tremors.
It's just ridiculous. Don't knock Tremors. Tremors is awesome. Continue, Matt. Here we go. Tell us about Tremors, Matt.
I first saw this on VHS. My dad had it, and me and my sister popped it in, and we just had an amazing time watching it. And it was a VHS that you pass by in the video store all the time, and the poster is the cover. And I would look at it so often because, based on that, it looks like the graboids, as they're later called. It looks like it's 20 feet, long. It looks like it could swallow them whole. So there was that interest, and I'm not a horror movie guy, barely. So giving this a chance was like a big step, and it was scary and hilarious, and spawned 6 sequels and a short run TV show. I like the second one very much. I was actually disappointed to learn that it didn't go into theaters. It was direct to video as the rest of them would.
You got no bacon. You got no bacon, so it didn't go to theaters because no bacon.
The title of the movie is Kevin Bacon. And on the, I don't have the poster back. I'm going to put the poster back up. He's got above everybody
Yeah.
credit here.
Yeah. Top biller, Kevin Bacon.
As well he should.
Rules.
But yeah, Perfection, Nevada, very small town, if you could even call it a town. It's more like a hovel, maybe. It's got 12 citizens and a general store. And one morning, some of the citizens are found dead. And Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward are the local handyman. And on their way out of town, they stop by and find one of the local farmers sucked into the ground. They find another guy sitting on top of a telephone pole with his rifle, just sitting up there, dying because he can't come down.
No, he's dead.
He's dead.
He's
Yes.
100% dead because he
But I mean,
dehydrated.
that's the thing. He
Yeah.
chose to sit up there and die
Yes,
rather
yeah.
than come down from it. And it's eventually discovered that, well, their first thought was serial killer
Yeah.
has come to our peaceful town. And then it's later discovered through the help of their seismologist. I'm forgetting her name, but she shows up and becomes the love interest to Kevin Bacon. And she's also, like I said, the seismologist. She helps get the information on how these things move. They use sound and they head towards it.
And vibration. Yeah.
The vibrations and sound. And eventually they discover it's these giant monsters underground, and there's at least 4 of them. After they take one out, there's at least 3 more running around. So a couple of the best scene. Well, my favorite scene in the movie takes place in Michael Gross's basement. He's married to Reba McEntire in the movie,
Yes.
and they're a couple of survivalists. They have a whole bunch of guns and a whole bunch of TNT and a big truck, and they chose Perfection, Nevada because of the geographic isolation.
Yeah,
they're away from the government. They're they probably would have voted for Trump, given the chance. At one point, I don't know what they're doing in there, but they got like a paint mixer going, but it's full of bullets.
Yeah.
And it's generating sound waves throughout loud enough that the graboids head towards the basement. Crashes through the basement wall, and they've got enough small and large arms to take it out. It's an amazing shot where they have their rifles, and once those rounds are spent, they turn and the camera moves with them, and there's a giant wall of guns, and they keep just taking them off, shooting, taking them off, automatic weapons, taking them off, flare gun right into the graboid's mouth. And Michael, after it dies, Michael Gross has the amazing line of, "Came into the wrong rec room, didn't you, you bastard?" And and the movie is, like I said, terrifying and hilarious. It's my number 1.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, it's the perfect film because of all the things you just said. It's got the perfect mix of everything. Great characters. Even the lesser characters, you get a great feel of who each character is. So when people start getting picked off, you're not just like, oh, it's just random dude that nobody cared about. It was
right.
like, oh shoot, it's Mr. Wong. Oh, spoiler. But like it's just, man, I watched it again this weekend. I've seen this movie a ton of times, and it never gets worse. Like I love every second of it. It's just the way they play it out, and like you said, you don't really see the monsters until even halfway through. You don't know what you're dealing with. You see small glimpses of it and see what it can do, and then they have the big reveal of what the full monster is, and it's just a great, well-crafted movie that just plays out perfectly, and just a great idea. Like this is well before A Quiet Place, right? But they have this great idea that based on this idea of that there's these things that you can fool them by stopping and being quiet, and they work away around that. And they find out that these monsters are not dumb. Like there's one that figures stuff out, and it's just a blast from start to finish. There's zero parts that I would take out of this movie because it is just fantastic. So great choice. Great number one. Love it. Love Tremors.
Let's hear
All right.
yours.
All right. So, like I said, this is my number one movie of the 21st century, number one horror movie of the 21st century. It might even be in my top 10 movies of the 21st century. This is a movie I saw 5 times in the theater. I just kept going back because I loved it so much. It is from director Neil Marshall. It is from 2005. It is a movie called The Descent.
Oh, okay.
And this movie is legit terrifying. And this movie is just terrifying before the creatures of said creature feature even show up. This movie is about six women. I'm guessing this is going to be somebody else's list.
I wonder.
6 women who are adventurers.
Is it? You just want to hammer it together?
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this movie is about 6 women who go into, or they're fun seekers. They do on extreme adventures. They get back from one adventure, there's one rafting adventure, and they're on their way home. The main character who is on the way home with her husband and daughter, and they get into an accident, and husband and daughter are killed. And so fast forward a year, she has been basically a recluse. She is traumatized. She has PTSD. Oh my gosh! Thank you.
Need the traumatic in there. Yeah.
And so they want to take her on her friends want to take her on this adventure to kind of snap her out of it. Not snap her out of her, but get her out of the house and try to help her out. And led by her best friend Beth, who you can tell is very close to her and who has been supportive this whole time. And she also has her friend, but also you can tell is a rival in Juno. And Juno is super alpha badass. And you find out more secrets on that later on about Juno, and I don't think we won't reveal about that later, will we? No, we won't.
No.
Okay. But so they go on this adventure, and what I like about this movie is I found out a lot about it is that Neil Marshall, when this movie first got greenlit, it was a mixed cast. And so it was a group of men and women. Neil Marshall came in and said, no, I want to make this a movie with 6 women and have the interplay with the 6 women. And I think it's brilliant. And on top of that, you have each individual character is very different. They have different personalities. And on top of that, there are 6 basically virtually unknown actresses. They're people that you don't know, you don't recognize. There's no stars in this movie. You don't know anything about these actresses, so you have no, there's no leading woman. There's no Angelina Jolie, and they kind of make a joke about I'm a doctor, not I'm not Tomb Raider, right?
Yeah.
And they make that joke early on because there is no Tomb Raider alpha person that is going to be in here, superhumanly doing crazy stuff. And I love that. So they go down into this cave, and right off the hop, I'm mildly claustrophobic, but they get into some of these scenes where they're going through these tunnels. And what I found out about this film too is that this is all sets that they built. This is not built into a thing, which is incredible to me because it looks insane. And some of these set pieces are so good. And they're crawling through these small crevices where they're barely fitting in. And at one point, one of them starts to collapse, and they have to get through, and they get trapped. I remember watching this in the theater and having a legitimate panic attack.
Yes.
Watching this movie during these cave sequences. And this is the creatures show up 40 minutes into this film.
Yeah, more than that.
More than that.
I timed it because I
Timed it.
watched it a couple nights ago, and it's halfway through the movie.
Halfway through the movie, the creatures show up. So halfway through the movie, I'm already scared to death.
Yeah.
From this movie and like having anxiety over this movie.
Yeah. And I'm not claustrophobic, and I was terrified watching these like do these kind of like, gymnastic bends around the corners and then like they're going through not puddles, but like water that is collected in these crevices. It's terrifying. It's like claustrophobic, the fear of being buried alive. It's so terrifying.
It is. And like I remember just being, and so then like you said, an hour into it, you add in these creatures, and so they are called crawlers. And so they are mutated humans from thousands and thousands of years ago. They mutated into these underground dwellers that feed on animals and apparently people as well. And so they attack them, and a bunch of bad stuff ensues, which leads to a homage to my favorite scene that we've talked about on a previous episode, which the main character comes out of a pool of blood, much like Martin Sheen does in Apocalypse Now. And so like it has a very similar feel to it, but this is a pool of blood, like a massive pool of blood. Baptized in blood, and she comes out basically badass and starts murdering things after that. But I just love this. It's again, it shows these women thrown into this situation where they have to come together and fight for one another and fight these things and like take care of each other. And then there's other assorted plot twists in the mix that we won't get to, but they spend a lot of time getting you to care about care about the characters and care about the relationship between the characters. Okay, I'm gonna start talking. Go ahead. sorry, I talked a lot.
No, this is great because you covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. So, but let me do my. I want to do my slide.
I will
because I have the cooler cover.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah. You
do. The 6 women in the skull pattern. So so this is my number 1 as well. And ditto everything you just said, but just kind of like why I picked this one. It almost didn't make my list for that reason, because all my other films were very creature focused, and this one was like, it's like this is like 3 movies in one. You've got the interpersonal relationships, and you've got the claustrophobia, the horror of being buried alive. And then on top of that, because that was the point of what Neil Marshall wanted to do, is he wanted to sort of like put these women in this terrifying situation with the being in the dark, and then to make it worse by adding these creatures. And now you not only have to escape the cave, you have to do it while being followed by these vicious, blood drinking, flesh eating creatures that are hunting you down. So this was kind of like, when I was kind of thinking about what each of the movies are a twist on, this was kind of like the twist on a modern update to vampires. That was kind of what I was thinking of, because they kind of look like bats and like feral vampires.
And they also work on the radar. The same thing was as the Tremors thing. That's all they are blind, and they go by sound and again radar vibrations.
Yeah. But I love the fact that this is all female cast. There's no weak victims in this. They're all badass, going down fighting. Yes, they are victims, but they fight back, and they fight hard, and it was just so impressive. Some of those fight scenes were amazing. But yeah, just the layering horror upon horror, it just draws you in, and every element of it is good. And then of course there's the usual theme of people are monsters too, and it kind of gets into the we care about these women, we care about their well-being, and we sympathize with them being chased by the monsters, and then we find out that they themselves are showing monstrous behaviors. So we find out about a betrayal, and their revenge is the worst possible revenge that you can think of, and so it's really kind of, there's so many different layers to this film, and that's why I love it too, and that's why I picked it as my number 1.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I
love
knew,
it.
so
That's
I knew
really
you were going to
cool.
cross over. I knew you were going to cross over on it. I didn't know it was going to be your number one, but I was afraid it was going to be like lower on your list, and we were going to have to like think. So it worked out so perfectly.
That worked
Perfect,
out
Number one.
surprisingly really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. It's just like I said, it no matter how many times I watch it, and I've seen it a lot, it literally gets me every time.
I agree.
And like you said, they're all badass. One of the craziest parts about it is the one scene. There's a scene where the one of them who's could be considered a lesser character, one of the lesser women, does this free climb across this chasm. And she's just holding on like by her hands and free climbing across this thing, and like it's a tough thing. And so you're talking again, you're looking at these like, oh, isn't it crazy that these women can do these adventure things, but like, no, this is a woman who's like doing things that a man probably couldn't do or like would struggle doing as well. So it's like, I love that scene where she's just badass, like climbing across this chasm with free climbing with her hands. Like,
she's putting, I don't know what they're called, like the little hooks that you put the rope across when you have to go, like kind of sticking in between the crevices.
It's like this thing that expands between two rocks. I don't know what it's called either. I'm not a climber, obviously.
But she has to like, go on the stalactite, stick it up, and then she's hanging from the rope doing the next one. Gives me the chills just thinking. I literally have the chills thinking about
Matt,
it.
who likes this movie more, me or you?
Have you seen the movie?
No.
Oh.
That's why we haven't said 2 words.
Have you seen it, Matt?
No, you mentioned how the girl was how you were freaking out about the girl climbing across the thing, and how there are men who wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't even be able to crawl into a cave. So
I'm with you. I'm with you. I would be terrified. I'm terrified looking at caves. I went to cave like a cave thing with my parents, and like I was literally like freaking out the entire time, and it was like a tourist cave with like the guardrails basically. I was freaking out. So like every time, that's part of the reason why this terrifies me, is that like I would never even dream about this, and plus I would get stuck in like the first opening probably.
Okay, Scott, bring us home.
Cool. Okay. Lovely. So I'm gonna go with a movie that we've all seen, we've all heard. It's one of the most famous horror movies there is. I wanted to fit it in. I didn't know if I had to round hole square peg it. So I did find a definition. We're going to come to the definition of creatures, and I found one here. I do want to read it because I wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, it can be a monster movie. Certainly, it's a monster movie, but it's not a creature. It's not a creature in the sense that everybody else had. 2 legs, 2 arms creatures, and they attack, and they big mouths, and they eat, and they gotta be on lockdown and hunt it. But this definition I found sealed it for me, and it's anything living or existing, animals with characteristics similar to humans, a fictional or imaginary being, but a frightening one. And I was like, done. Sets up perfect for my number 1. Guys, we're going to be talking about 1963's The Birds, directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Nice.
Yes.
Hey, you don't have to justify this. This is definitely
for monsters. I was thinking about like it's definitely a monster film. It's by far, but the creatures being birds, run-of-the-mill birds. And it's Hitchcock's follow-up horror to Psycho a little later on. Cast Tippi Hedren in the starring role, and she plays Melanie Daniels, who soughts out the affection of one Rod Taylor, playing Mitch, and their love affair, their little meet cute, takes up about the first 45 minutes of the film. And she follows them to this little island just off of San Diego. And while she's there, there is an outright onslaught of the patrons of this town by the birds, the seagulls, and the sparrows and the crows, attacking and pecking and murdering. With really there's such a class and a elegance to Hitchcock horror, and this movie has this in the fact that it's not really, there is no explanation. It's just happening. It's just a slice of this, and there is that brewing nature that something's going to happen, like I said, through the first 45 minutes that she gets there. And it's kind of a family squabble where she's getting railroaded by Jessica Tandy, who plays Lydia, the mother, and she's kind of injecting and all this, and the scenes that really catapult it to the next step are the birthday party. That's the first attack on the children. Yeah. And then the second, which is one of my favorite shots, is when she sees the jungle gym filled with birds.
It's amazing. I was thinking about that scene.
Is by far the most rewatchable scene of this film. And they have to do a fire escape with the children. And as they are going through, the birds then decide to attack. And Hitchcock says, "Fuck them kids." And those kids get attacked, and those kids die, and those kids are getting attacked. And it is incredible. And like I said, because the product for its time, it still looks great. And they used, I had the number. They used about 2,000 real birds, and then the rest were mechanical as well too in some scenes. And they did use early blue screen in this as well too. So they were able to dub over sets and attacking and things like that. But again, it's definitely one of the most famous horror films of the 60s. The scene when she's in the phone booth and it's being attacked, and they're running in, and they've gone psychotic, and it's just really festers and boils in a way that horror doesn't. Like, it really starts off low, goes up, and then the switch comes, like I said, and it becomes a totally different thing. And then, a lot of this, I rewatched it, and I was listening to some podcasts breaking it down. And, a lot of what Romero does 4 years later with the zombie films, he owes to this. There's the scene when Rod Taylor's legitimately boarding up the doors and boarding up the windows, and the birds come through the chimney, and they're in the house. And it's like, oh, this is the template for zombie films that would follow all through the 70s and 80s, inside the house and the confines, and the people turning on each other, and the drama built in through that with the overbearing violence outside. And as you go on and you get through the scenes when, they're in the roof and she gets escorted out, and as they get in the car and drive off and the birds are just there, it's incredible stuff. There's no answer or rhyme or reason why any of it's happening. It's just an incredibly crafted film. It is Hitchcock, I believe, only film with no score and music. He only uses natural sound. He uses music at the very start of the film, and then tells Bernard Herrmann, "We're going to sit you on the bench on this one," and gives him a credit as music consultant. And in doing so, it's all natural sounds, and there's nothing. The suspension is just from natural sounds for the film. And I didn't notice that. And even after I rewatched it, I went back and rewatched the main scenes, and it's all natural sound. There's no music in the background of that. And that's an interesting choice that he would have made. But again, for the effect it has on film in the 60s and horror and all that, and Tippi Hedren is so gorgeous in this film too. She's probably one of my favorite of the Hitchcock blondes. She's just, her style, her mannerisms, the socialite nature, the alpha personality, and the green dress is iconic as well too. I wanted to put this as my number one, so I'm glad it was met with no resilience as a creature feature. It's definitely a monster. I knew it wouldn't have it. It wouldn't be too much of a tough sell. I actually ran this by a couple other people too when I talked to on Messenger. And it doesn't show up on any list, so I was really proud I could put it on mine.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's
I know,
a really
that's
good
what they
choice.
said too. That's what they said too. There's a lot of the other stuff, and when you search online, you see a lot of the Tremors and things like that, and a lot of zombie films. And then I was like, this is everything that is a zombie film.
Yeah.
Not explaining. Absolutely. And again, like I said, so it's Hitchcock. I have a Hitchcock mug. I got my Hitchcock shirts, and you'll notice the birds is at the very top of that.
I love it.
So I thought wearing it would have been too much of a giveaway, but by all means, when there's Hitchcock, I'll try and get him on. So for that, my number one.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with that. One of the great things about it is they never explain why it happened, even after the fact.
It's funny. It's kind of based on a true story too, a little bit, that this did happen in the late 50s. You see, and I'm like, there's no way. But there was about a toxic leak, and the birds were drinking the water, and then they were prone to violence. Not in this way. There was just a book written about it, and Hitchcock said that's a great idea, and turned it into his own film. And then hearing that, you're like, oh, this could happen plausibly. Sure. Maybe rabies. I don't know. But your fact that there's no explanation and it's just the same thing, that just puts Hitchcock a level above anybody, because you're like, oh, he doesn't have to explain it because no one gives a shit because this movie's so incredible otherwise.
And a fun fact, that we were just talking about Tippi Hedren this week, because I found out that she is Melanie Griffith's mom.
Yep.
And you said her character is Melanie in this movie.
I
wonder if this is the inspiration.
Go figure. It's funny.
Well,
not a fun fact.
how Hitchcock treated.
Yeah, I'm about to
Debbie
say,
Henson.
I'm surprised
Let's
she would
leave it
name it
at
after her
that.
character, after her experience in The Birds, or all the other movies too.
She did this in Marty, and then was, I'm out.
Yeah.
And please put your ween back in your pants, Mr. Hitchcock.
Yeah. Seriously.
So
All right.
that does it for us and our lists. How did
Yes.
everyone enjoy them? I'm asking the
Oh,
audience.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
I love this.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
great episode for sure.
I love ghost stories, but I think I had more fun with making this list, just rewatching all my favorites, and yeah. And by the way, thank you so much for inviting me. This was
You
so much
bet.
fun to do, and yeah,
Of
just had a lot of fun.
course, and you'll be back again, I'm sure.
I'd love to.
For everyone watching at home, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to put your list of your favorite creature features in the comments. We want to hear about your gremlins and your critters and your ghoulies. Everything we missed, throw it down in the comments and we'll read them later. But until next time, I'm Matt, AB, Scott. Thank you again, Kim, for coming around. Everyone have a safe Halloween. We will see you next time.